The night began like any other, a routine evening spent house-sitting for my parents while they were away. The neighborhood was calm, the kind of quiet that settles over suburban streets after dark, when most people are tucked safely inside their homes. Gus, my loyal dog, was acting strangely. He paced the living room, whining in a tone I'd never heard before, high-pitched, urgent, almost pleading. It was as if he sensed something I couldn't see. His anxiety was contagious. I tried to calm him, but his panic only grew, making my own nerves fray. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Suddenly, a faint shuffling sound drifted in from outside the window. I strained to listen, my heart thudding in my chest. Was it just the wind or something more? My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe it was just a raccoon or some other animal rummaging through the bushes, but the unease in Gus's eyes told me otherwise. Without warning, Gus leaped onto the bed, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. He pressed close to me, seeking comfort, but I had none to give. The shuffling outside abruptly stopped. In its place, I heard a muffled scream, followed by a chilling giggle that sent a wave of cold fear through me. The sound was unmistakably human and deeply unsettling. This was no animal. Someone was out there lurking in the darkness, and their presence was terrifying in a way I'd never experienced before. I froze, every muscle in my body tensed and ready to bolt, but I couldn't move. Fear rooted me to the spot, my breath shallow and quick. Gus began to growl, a low, rumbling warning, his eyes locked on the window as if daring whatever was out there to come closer. The world outside, once familiar and safe, had transformed into a place of unimaginable terror. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound felt like a threat. I huddled with Gus, both of us paralyzed by fear, trapped in our own home with only each other for comfort. The silence pressed in, broken only by our ragged breathing. Then, suddenly, the silence of the suburban street was shattered by the distant wail of sirens and the flash of police lights. Something was very wrong, and I knew our lives would never be the same. My parents' house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. Shadows twisted into menacing shapes. Gus barked sharply, mirroring my fear. I wanted to believe it was paranoia, but Gus's instincts screamed danger. The silence was heavy, expectant, like a storm about to break. I felt an urge to confront the darkness outside, but fear rooted me to the spot. The familiar walls offered no protection from the unknown terror. Curiosity overpowered fear. The unknown outside tugged at my mind, refusing to let me rest. The silence of the night pressed in, thick and heavy, making every shadow seem alive. I had to see what was outside, even though every instinct screamed for me to stay hidden. The urge to know, to confront whatever was lurking, was stronger than my dread. I crept to the window, heart pounding so loudly I was sure it would give me away. My breath caught in my throat as I reached for the curtain, hands trembling. At first there was nothing, just the moonlit lawn, empty and still, bathed in a cold, silvery glow. The familiar shapes of bushes and trees seemed harmless, almost comforting. Relief washed over me, a brief moment of calm settling in, until I saw him. My body tensed, every muscle ready to flee. But I was frozen in place. A man, tall and thin, moved with eerie purpose. He was tying a leash, or maybe a rope, to the doorknob, his movements deliberate and unsettling. He was trapping me inside, sealing my only escape. The realization sent a chill down my spine, panic rising in my chest. My mind struggled to process the calculated act, trying to make sense of his intentions. Was this a prank, or something far more sinister? He wedged a mop under the knob, creating a crude barricade that would keep me from opening the door. It was a simple trick, but terrifying in its effectiveness. He stepped back, admiring his work with a twisted sense of satisfaction, as if he had accomplished something important. For a moment, his head turned towards my window, his gaze searching for any sign of movement. I felt exposed, vulnerable, as if he could see straight through me. I yanked the curtain shut, heart hammering in my chest, desperate to hide from his sight. The fabric felt thin, offering little protection from the terror outside. When I dared to peek again, the man was gone, vanished into the night, but the terror remained, lingering in every shadow and every creak of the house. I was trapped, with only Gus for company, My loyal dog pressed close, his presence the only comfort in a night that suddenly felt endless. My mind raced with fear and adrenaline. I couldn't stay in that room a second longer. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound felt amplified. The air was thick with tension, and my heart pounded so loudly I was sure it would give me away. The front door was blocked, a heavy chair wedged tightly against it. My escape route was gone, and panic clawed at my chest as I realized there was no easy way out. Gus, my loyal dog, nudged me insistently, sensing my fear. His eyes were wide and alert, urging us to leave before it was too late. He seemed to understand the danger even before I did. We crawled out of the bedroom, staying low to avoid being seen through the windows. Every movement felt risky, but we had no choice. The hallway stretched before us, dark and silent except for our shallow breaths. The kitchen's sliding door was our only hope, a faint glimmer of escape in the darkness. I could see the moonlight glinting off the glass, calling us forward. Every creak beneath us sounded like a gunshot in the silence. I winced with each step, terrified that the noise would alert whoever might be out there. I reached the kitchen, my hands trembling so badly I could barely grip the counter. My breath came in short, ragged bursts as I tried to steady myself. The latch clicked loudly as I unlocked the door, the sound echoing in the stillness. For a moment I froze, listening for any sign that someone had heard. We slipped outside, the cool night air washing over us like a wave of relief. The world felt open and dangerous, but at least we were out of the house. We sprinted across the lawn, adrenaline fueling our every step. I barely felt the grass beneath my feet as we vaulted over the backyard fence, desperate to put distance between us and the house. Hiding in my neighbor's yard, I crouched behind the bushes and fumbled for my phone. My hands shook as I dialed 911, praying the call would go through quickly. My voice was a choked whisper, barely audible as I tried to explain the situation to the operator. Every second felt critical, and I struggled to keep my fear in check. The operator told me to stay hidden and keep quiet. Help was on the way. I clung to those words, trying to steady my breathing as I waited in the darkness. Those minutes felt like an eternity, each one stretching out as I listened for sirens, hoping rescue would arrive before anything else could go wrong. The flashing lights were a beautiful sight. Police arrived, moving with quiet efficiency. I recounted the story, pointing to the door. An officer turned the knob. The door swung open. The man had tied the leash and mop, but the door was unlocked. It was a psychological trick meant to trap me. If I had tried the door, I would have found it open. The man vanished, leaving behind terror and a cheap leash. Evil doesn't always announce itself loudly. It preys on your sense of security. Trust your instincts. Fear can find you anywhere, even behind a door that was never locked. There is a certain kind of fear that only comes at night, a cold dread that crawls up your spine when you hear a sound that doesn't belong. For me, that sound was a heavy, deliberate bang on our front door at 2:17 a.m. No one should be knocking at this hour. My name is Leo, and I was 10 years old when this happened. The silence after the knock was almost worse than the sound itself. I stood frozen in my doorway, listening, my heart pounding. Was it just a dream? A branch in the wind? I tried to convince myself. But then it came again. Bang, bang, bang. 3 powerful knocks that shook the house. Someone was outside and they wanted in. Fear gripped me, but curiosity pulled me forward. Who could possibly be at our door at this hour? I knew I shouldn't, but I had to see. I had to know what was on the other side of that door. Our house was usually noisy, but that night it was silent. My siblings slept soundly. My mom, a light sleeper, hadn't stirred. My dad was working the night shift. His absence made the house feel bigger, emptier, and more vulnerable. I crept out of my room, careful not to make a sound. The living room was filled with familiar shapes made strange by the dark. I remembered the rule, never open the door at night. But the urge to see who was out there was stronger than my fear. I decided not to go to the door, but to the window beside it. From there, I could peek through the blinds and see the porch. I dropped to my hands and knees, crawling across the carpet. The silence was deafening. Every shadow seemed to move. I reached the window, heart hammering. Crawling felt safer than walking. I pressed my back against the wall beneath the window, trembling. Maybe it was a police officer, or someone needing help, I hoped. But the knocking hadn't sounded like someone asking for help. Slowly I raised my head and peered through a gap in the blinds. At first the porch was empty. Relief washed over me. Maybe they were gone. But then I saw a shape standing just to the side of the door, hidden from the peephole. A tall figure, cloaked in darkness, motionless. No face, just a silhouette blending into the shadows. He was waiting. My relief vanished, replaced by pure terror. I couldn't look away. The man was tall, wearing a long coat and a hat that shadowed his face. He stood perfectly still, like a statue carved from the night. Why wasn't he knocking again? Why was he just waiting? I watched, frozen, barely breathing. Then, as if he sensed me, he slowly turned his head toward the window. Two pale eyes caught the moonlight, staring directly into mine. In that instant, I knew he saw me. His expression was blank, emotionless, a predator's gaze. I tried to move, but I was paralyzed. He didn't come closer, he just stared. The stillness was menacing, as if he wanted me to see him, to be afraid, and I was. I was more afraid than I'd ever been. Just as I was about to scream, a light flickered on behind me. My mom's voice broke the spell. I scrambled away from the window, pointing. "There's a man outside." Her concern turned to alarm. She gathered us all into her room and locked the door. She called the police, her hands shaking. The police arrived quickly, searching the property. They found nothing. No footprints, no sign of the man. The rocking chair was still. The man was gone. The police suggested it was a mistake or a nightmare. But I know what I saw. I saw his eyes. We all slept in my mom's bed that night, but I didn't sleep at all. I listened to every creak of the house, haunted by what I'd seen. Some doors are meant to stay closed, and you should always trust that feeling in your gut when something is wrong in the dark.